Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching this video. Today I'm going to show you how I draw this cow. You can probably see the outline just about in pencil. And I'm starting off working on the background. So I'm using a mixture of Polychromos coloured pencils and also Derwent drawing, which are quite a bit more opaque. So if you want to get a lot of ground covered quickly, and really smooth blending, then I really recommend these pencils. They don't come in loads of different colours, but if you do a lot of natural scenes or wildlife and things like that, they have some great colours for that. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend getting only these pencils, but they work great if you also have another set. So I'm just going over quite a few layers at a time. You really have to, if you want to get a smooth background, you really have to layer up the coloured pencils. And then what you can see me doing here is I'm just blending with odorless mineral spirits. In this case, it's Gamsol. And what that does is it just dissolves the pencil into the tooth of the paper. So you can see here when I'm colouring, you can see the little white spots, and that Gamsol will hopefully just dissolve that pencil and get rid of all that graininess and grittiness to give you a really nice smooth background. And it helps with this as well if you have a nice sharp pencil. Type of pencil also makes a difference, but you can see there, nice and smooth. And to get that smoothness, you also need to go over it a lot of times. This is one of the reasons that coloured pencil takes so long, is you don't just do one pass like you could get away with doing in painting. You've got to build up those layers to get a really nice, opaque, smooth background. So I'm using much more yellow and greens in the foreground and much more blues and browns in the background. And that's so that it gives you the perspective of distance. So up there in the top where I'm putting the blue there, that's almost, it is left up to your imagination, but it could be trees coming up from the field, it could be just the distance. But that more blue in the background, more yellow in the foreground is something that a lot of landscape artists use to give the perspective of distance and depth in their paintings. Here it's just a very, very simple example of that. But yeah, it makes it a little bit more interesting than just a solid flat colour. I'm coming through there with the Gamsol again. Often when your colours don't look particularly saturated in coloured pencil is because you don't have enough layers on before you blend out with mineral spirits. You need about 4, 5, 6 layers of coloured pencil, and it doesn't have to be the same colour, but it could be the same colour that you go over and over. And then you can blend out once you've got enough coloured pencil on the surface of the paper. So finally, we're now onto the cow. This was actually a lot of fun. I'm just blocking in where those darker shapes will be. And in coloured pencil, or actually any medium, you will often hear a lot of artists criticising the use of black. I really like black. It's very useful, especially here where I'm just going over a light layer, just to block in where those darker shapes are going to be on the cow's face. But I would recommend using some other colours to go over to give it a little bit more depth. Just straight black can look quite flat, and it's the same as white. Black is never really black, white is never really white. So I'm just blocking in where those creases in the skin are going to be around the eye. And you can see I'm using quite a few browns and greys and blues as well as that black. I use quite a bit of blue in both the black and the white to reflect the sky. It's really important to use some of the colours in your background, or not necessarily even your background, but in what you imagine will be the environment of the subject, so that you're reflecting those colours and making it look more realistic. With those darker colours, the same as with the background, you need to put plenty of layers on before you blend out with the mineral spirits. You'll see me coming back over and over and over to try and build up that colour and that depth. So here I'm just marking in the direction of the hair. There's quite a bit longer hair on the top of the head there, and it's really important when you're drawing hair or fur or feathers or anything with that sort of texture that you're watching the direction of the fur or the feathers, and that you're following that. You don't need every strand in exactly the right place, but you do need to follow the general pattern and get those clumps and clusters of hair to be going in the right direction. You can see how dark I'm building up that white of the face. White is very, very rarely white, and it's only actually really a highlight of the eye, and even the highlight of the eye, sometimes not even all of that is completely white. So it's really important to look critically at the white and see what colours you can draw out of it. So you can see at the bottom of the belly here, I'm reflecting quite a lot of the background colours and the greens and the browns that I've got there. Like you would expect the cow in the field, but if you look at a white cow in a field, you'll see the underside of the belly is actually surprisingly green. You wouldn't want to draw it completely neon green necessarily, but you do need some of that reflected colour. Not quite as vibrant as the background, but certainly there. So you can see in all of those dark spots, I'm going in with black, but I'm also using blues to complement that and to make sure it doesn't look like a really flat black, but has a little bit of depth and a little bit more realism to it. Quite often with blacks, they will either side on one side of the other of a cool or a warm. So it's either going to be a bluish kind of black or a brownish kind of black. And if you're painting, you can mix blue and brown to make a black. And so you can do the same with coloured pencil. If you go a little bit too much blue, then you can bring it back down with black, and vice versa. With brown, sorry, and vice versa. Here I'm just building up some contrast in the nose. I think people quite often find noses difficult because there's so many shapes, and to get that wet look, it can be quite difficult, but it's all about contrast really. I think people are a little bit intimidated with going really light on a black nose, but actually where you've got that reflected light, don't always think about what colour something is, but think about what colours that thing reflects as well. So on a nose, the sky will be reflected, so you'll have a bit of blues and greys in there. Here I'm just making sure that my black splodges are not completely black, and there are some highlights in there where the skin moves around the body or where it's reflecting the sky a little bit more. So I'm making sure that where there are highlights, even in those black areas, they're drawn in. And that just adds to the depth and the realism of it and making it look 3D. Got quite a few veins and blood vessels that you can see coming through the skin. They're quite obvious at the moment. They will be dulled down, but a lot of the time in my work, I like to make something really obvious. Just for myself, it'll later be hidden or dulled down or whatever, but just to help me in judging my values and making sure that everything is in the right place, making sure that all of the proportions are right, and then I will go back in and make sure that they look right with the rest of the piece. So here you can see I'm getting that nose really nice and dark, and that's only through layers and layers and layers. Same with the ears. So I'm getting it nice and dark, and then I'm going to build up the texture of fur in there. Just coming back through on the background. Sometimes you can get a background perfect first time round. It's very rare for me. So often I will reach a point in the background where I think that's good enough. Then I'll do the foreground, and then I'll go back and make sure that that looks right, and there's nothing in the piece that's bringing the whole piece down. There's no weaknesses in there. I decided at some point that the background looked a little bit too flat. So I just added this little mud patch in the top left hand corner to kind of give it a little bit more perspective, and then make it a little bit more obvious that it's a field. So I'm just building up some contrast as well in that white fur and making sure all those shadows are there. And here just the finishing touches with, it's a mixture of titanium white powder and coloured pencil texture, something? Touch-up texture, that's the one. And this is the only archival product that you can use with coloured pencil to paint on white highlights over the top. So it's the only thing that will actually stick to the coloured pencil and stay stuck. So that's really, really useful. And I would recommend that with coloured pencil, definitely. And there we have it. This is the finished cow painting. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this useful or if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.